The first thing I noticed as I went down the hallway is I was right above the void. There was a 3-block jump that wouldn't be too hard to hit, but I didn't want to make the jump more times than I had to. So I turned around and double checked the new area to make sure I hadn't walked past anything important, but it just seemed like a normal bedrock hallway. I even went to the bottom of the pit and looked up, but I didn't see anything other than bedrock. So I was pretty sure I didn't need anything. I went back to the hole and pulled out my parkour skills and managed to jump to the other side. The first thing I noticed on the other side was a chicken that was attached to a fence with a lead, and the chicken was actually named Subscribe, and I figured the reason they did this is they wanted me to be reminded that YouTube says about 90% of you hate me and want the channel to fail. So if you don't hate me, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. The next thing I noticed up here was a chest, and I opened it up to see it had a boat inside, so I destroyed the chest to pick up the boat and the chest. At this point, I was pretty confused what to do with this random assortment of items. I basically had two main problems. I had no idea where to go next, and I also had no idea what to do with all my items, but I started figuring out the second part pretty quickly. Once I saw the bedrock spike above the void, I was pretty sure I knew what I needed to do. See, I had basically all the items I needed to dangle myself into the void, but I had absolutely no idea why I would want to do that. That's until I looked at the coordinates. I was on Y level 4, not Y level 1, meaning there could still be blocks and items down there that were useful for me. Once I figured all this out, I looked up a quick YouTube tutorial because I didn't want to screw this part up and get stuck down here. Then I went back to our pet chicken Subscribe and grabbed the lead and the fence. I took all three of them back to the void. The first thing we had to do to pull this off was place the fence over the void. Next, we attached the chicken to the fence with the lead. Then we just have to push the chicken into the void. At this point I was really scared because if the lead broke we would be stuck here and lose the run. Luckily it all went fine. I don't fully understand why this next part works, but I think it's because the boat's an entity and a chicken's also an entity, meaning the boat can't pass through it. So for the next part, you place a boat next to the edge of the bedrock and start pushing it into the void just like the chicken. It's going to take a while, but once you do it all the way, the boat falls down and lands on the chicken's head and floats there. You now have a platform that you can stand on to stay above the void. I'd never built this in Minecraft before and it felt really unsafe. I kept feeling like if I walked out onto the boat, I was going to fall right into the void. But I knew I followed the tutorial correctly, and at this point I was positive it was what I had to do to escape the prison, so after a little thinking I just went for it. I now had access to the new area. The first thing I noticed was this chest, and it had 2 ender pearls inside of it. The only other thing I could see down here was this bedrock cubby that looked like it was where I was supposed to go next. I looked around for a while and tried to think of a way to get over there other than throwing an ender pearl, but I was pretty sure it was impossible, so after a bit of thinking I just threw the pearl and got to the next area. Before we continued on, we turned around and said goodbye to our pet chicken, who's probably going to spend the rest of his life floating above the void with the boat on his head, but he was a true hero. After we said our goodbyes, we turned around and looked around. The first room was just a normal empty bedrock room.